What's up everybody, I'm Abatage and welcome to episode 4 of Twin Stick Tuesday. In this episode I'm having a look at Beat Hazard Ultra, a music-driven twin stick by Cold Beam Games. Not to be confused with the generic version of Beat Hazard, there's no question that Beat Hazard Ultra is the best way to experience the game, as it adds a ton of extra power-ups, enemies, bosses and game modes to the base game. And all up, they're all pretty cheap, so I highly recommend getting the Ultra version. And that's the one I'm looking at here. Beat Hazard Ultra is a fairly straightforward twin stick, but it's the amount of replayability that makes it so fantastic. There are loads of bits and pieces to unlock as you progress through the game, as well as a near infinite possibility as the game generates each level based on the music track you choose to play. Much like Audio Surf or Symphony, this allows for some increasingly diverse and ultimately endless gameplay, as each track is different and even the same track will be different each time as levels are randomly generated at the start of play. You start off with typical twin stick controls and abilities. You move with the left stick, shoot with the right, and set off level clearing bombs with the trigger. However, the main gun on your ship is dependent on a few things that can make it feel unique to play. Firstly, there are two bars at the bottom of the screen, one for volume and one for power. As you collect the associated power-ups that drop within the level, these bars fill, raising the volume of the music and the power of your gun as they go. Once they're both maxed out, you unlock the Beat Hazard, which allows you to go flat out with all guns blazing. But the second thing you might notice about Beat Hazard Ultra is that your guns and the enemies in each level are dependent on the track you've selected to play. In quiet moments, gameplay slows down to a trickle, and your guns are weaker, but as the music ramps up, so does the speed of the game, number of enemies, and the power of your guns. This means that there's a nice balance between upbeat music tracks and more chilled out ones, and it allows for a good ebb and flow through each level as the track builds and dips, taking the game along with it. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of visual feedback to show you exactly what's going on. So much so that you're able to adjust the intensity of the strobe effect in the settings to find a level that suits you. And it's a nice option to have, as the flickering lights can sometimes hurt your eyes after a long session of gameplay. As you play Beat Hazard Ultra, you add to an overall score that allows you to rank up and unlock different perks. These perks add a lot of features to the game, such as harder difficulty modes, power-ups that appear at the start of each level, new weapons to use, and more. Once a perk is unlocked, you can upgrade it by spending money that you collect during each level, which adds a good incentive to collect these otherwise useless drops. But it's worth putting in the effort, even just for the weapons. You can unlock a shield that reflects projectiles, an intense beam weapon that focus fires a lot of damage, and homing rockets that will seek out the biggest threat in the level. Plus, if you want to go for those high scores, it's worth turning on the harder difficulty levels as well to help with that multiplier. And yes, there's a multiplier that you're constantly expanding by collecting multiplier pickups throughout the level and making the most of the Daredevil and Survivor passive bonuses. The Daredevil bonus will pop after you've stopped shooting for a set time. While the Survivor bonus will pop if you can stay alive long enough. But watch out, because if you die, you lose a bunch of power and volume and have to scramble it all back together quickly to keep that multiplier rising. There are 4 main game modes in Beat Hazard Ultra, along with local and online multiplayer. Standard mode has you playing a single track against a mix of enemies including large bosses. Survival will keep on going as long as you stay alive, gradually intensifying and playing through a series of tracks without any breaks. Boss Rush has no regular enemies but will spawn a boss every 30 seconds or so, making it essential to rush through each one to avoid having multiple bosses to deal with at once. And Chill Out mode is an endless mode with everything unlocked and infinite lives. The enemies in Beat Hazard Ultra are diverse and numerous. On an upbeat track, it's easy to suddenly realise that your screen is full and there might not be a way out. However, one of the staples of each level are the asteroids that play out just like the original Asteroids title, by breaking up and moving in and out of the screen. The asteroids often appear in quieter moments in a track and are a nice way to break up the otherwise frantic action of the other enemy types. It goes without saying that the soundtrack to Beat Hazard Ultra is as brilliant as your own music collection, but the game comes with the Beat Hazard soundtrack, which is a collection of tracks to play that are fairly diverse, and should be able to please most people. But the most fun is playing the tracks from artists that you know and love, as it is with any music-based game like this. Thankfully, there are a few different ways to select tracks as well. You can play a single track that you choose, a random track from your library, or a random track that you've never played before, which is what I like to do, so that it's always fresh and different each time. There are leaderboards, which are nicely broken up into track lengths instead of individual track scores. This especially helps when you're playing some more obscure music that nobody else will have played, and it lets you see what tracks other people have played to get a better score. It's an elegant way of dealing with the leaderboards, and makes them a bit more interesting than a straight up score comparison. There's also Twitter and Last.fm support, if you're that way inclined. Although the Last.fm support hasn't worked for me for a long time, as it seems that the game hasn't kept up with Last.fm's changes to their API. But that stuff's just icing on the cake really, because Beat Hazard Ultra is absolutely packed with content and lets you play in so many ways that keep it fresh and fun. Some music games can be a bit boring if they don't change it up enough, and they rely too much on playing your music as the appeal. And while Beat Hazard Ultra certainly has that same appeal, all of its added features mean that there will always be something else to look at, and some other way to play each track. Plus, this game has the best Steam trading card integration that I've experienced so far. You can actually unlock new ships to use in-game by collecting the trading cards on Steam and crafting badges. And I'm of the opinion that trading cards are hilariously useless, but in this instance it's a nice way to offer some cosmetic DLC and actually give you a reason to collect those intangible and otherwise insignificant digital collectibles. Overall, Beat Hazard Ultra is the best way to play Beat Hazard and offers an absolute shitload of content and variables to play with. This game is definitely value for money and worth every penny. Sure, you have to really like playing against real music, so if you're not a music lover, this might be a barrier to entry. But for everyone else, I would recommend this title without any hesitation. So get out there and see if you can do better than my high score on the best of Def Leppard. And don't forget, there's a new episode each Tuesday, so head over to my channel page and subscribe if you want to stay up to date. And thanks for watching. Bye!